Welcome to Talking Technology with NCBI Labs, where we believe that technology is the single greatest enabler for people with sight loss and all disabilities. If you are interested in the latest technology news, products, and innovations, then you've come to the right place.
Hello and welcome in to Talking Technology with NCBI Labs. This is episode 20 for the 6th of December 2022. We're at episode 20. Can you believe it? We've left the teenage episodes behind. So I guess it's very mature from now on. We'll see how long that lasts. We've got a packed show coming up for you today. We have from SightTech Global, we have Brian Fischler with us, who's going to be telling us all about that assistive technology conference, which is happening tomorrow. It's only around the corner. And later on in the show, we will have Santiago Velasquez, who will be telling us about the Hailo app, as well as EyeSyght, two products that he has been developing over recent months and years. So lots and lots to come on the show, so do stick with us. If you want to get involved in the show, you can use the Q&A panel on Microsoft Teams, as always, or you can send us an email to labs@ncbi.ie. That's labs@ncbi.ie. But first, Brian Fischler is one of the hosts for SightTech Global. It's an assistive technology conference with a specific focus around AI. And we are going to find out all about it. So to chat with Brian, I'm going to hand you over to my co-host extraordinaire, Mr. Daniel Dunn.
Thank you very much for that introduction there, David. Very welcome to today's show, Brian. You're with SightTech Global, and as David said there in his introduction, we've got the conference kicking off tomorrow. So can you tell us a little bit more about what the SightTech Global conference is?
Sure. SightTech Global is an immersive conference, technology conference that is bringing the pioneers of the latest technology to the blind, visually impaired community. It's bringing tomorrow's technology to all of us today. And you're going to get to hear from some incredible speakers, learn about what's going on, the latest, greatest breaking cutting edge technology that's out there for the blind and visually impaired.
Excellent. And Brian, your role at the conference, what does that involve?
Yeah, so I'm this year's host. They reached out to me. I was a speaker last year at SightTech Global. I guess the second year of SightTech Global, I was speaking on behalf. I was involved with the project with Yahoo for the All Blind Fantasy Football League. Not your guys' football over there with kicking the ball, but our football over here, which is pretty popular. And I guess, between my day-to-day life and everything I do, they reached out to me wanting to add. I have a background in comedy and stand-up. And, if you've ever been to a blind tech conference before, they could be a little dull. So they brought me in to liven things up in the little bits I get to do between introducing all the great speakers at this year's conference.
Brilliant. And as you alluded to there, you're also a stand-up comedian. You do podcasts and you do writing. And can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, sure. I've been podcasting. I heard you guys. Congratulations on episode 20. I've been podcasting for about, 8 years. It started out with a little show called iAccess VO. That show has since evolved into you could download on any podcast player or tell your A-Lady or any of those devices to play That Real Blind Tech Show. We have a lot of fun on our show. It's like you mentioned, I have a background in stand-up comedy. Never performed in Ireland. I came close before the pandemic. I thought I might be coming over there to do a few shows, but I've performed all over the United States. I live in New York City, so I perform primarily in New York, Los Angeles, and Florida. I have a guide dog. He comes on stage with me. We just did a benefit here in New York called Laugh for Sight that I've been running for 15 years. And pretty much any American comedian you've heard of. We've had over 100 all donate their time. So yeah, I get to test out my comedy chops on our podcast while talking about the technology that I'm passionate about.
That sounds excellent, Brian. I'll definitely have a listen out for those in my podcast list to do. So going back then to the conference, right? So where did the idea for the SciTech Global Conference come from? And I suppose what, inspired it to get going?
Yeah, SciTech Global is Ned Desmond's baby. Ned has a family member who is blind visually impaired. Ned comes from the tech industry. I believe he was at TechCrunch, and he wanted to give back. He wanted to not only give back to the community, he knew that he had the contacts in the tech biz where he could reach out and get those innovators to talk about what they're working on, talk about how to really improve the lives of those who are blind and visually impaired. He's the founder, he's the executive producer of this year's show, and you'll be hearing from him at this year's conference. He's real connected in that Silicon Valley area up there in California. So we're very fortunate to have somebody with Ned really driving this conference and moving it forward. He created it, and very thankful for all of Ned's hard work.
Yes, absolutely. It's great to hear where something like this can be founded, what gives the inspiration to get it going. And as this is the second annual conference was held last year online, right? Do you see this continuing to be an online event, or was that just kind of pandemic related?
Well, it started as an online event. This is the third year. So this year it's online, but there also is a third day this year. SciTech Global has always been 2 days. It's packed. It really moves. It's about 3-4 hours a day of just one amazing speaker after another. But this year, as things are getting a little bit back to normal, they figured we'd add a in-person day. And I think they're going to see how that goes. I think they're always going to have that online part of the conference because the idea is to reach as many people on a global stage as possible. So that's not going to be going away. And as you know, traveling is just not what it used to be these days.
No.
I just flew to Florida, and oh boy, was that an experience. And but they have brought on this third day, and I think they'll see how that goes. And if that goes well, I think you'll see a hybrid conference next year, part of it online. I think all the speakers will always be online, but then you're going to have some breakout sessions that are in person for those people that can get there in person.
Absolutely, absolutely. That sounds great. And I suppose over the last few years you've run this, what has the response and feedback been like? What's the uptake?
All I could go from the numbers from last year, because like you said, the conference doesn't start till tomorrow, and it's incredible. Last year, they had over 3,000 people from 70 countries tune in. So it is truly a global event. And I said, wow, I wish I could get people from 70 countries listening to my podcast. So you get an incredible global audience. And I'd like to think we're going to grow this year and see those numbers even improve.
Absolutely. That would be great. So some of the guest speakers maybe that you have attending this year and some of the topics that are going to be discussed, could you give anything away at this late stage?
Oh, yeah. You could go to the events page. It's currently up, and you could see everybody who's speaking at this year's conference. I don't have everybody memorized, but I'll tell you a few. You've got Greg Stilson of APH, American Printing House for the Blind. He'll be talking about the latest collaboration between APH and Humanware. You'll have Peter Korn from Amazon talking about the latest at Amazon. You'll have a couple of lead developers from Apple speaking. Larry Goldberg, who's a pioneer in the blind tech world, formerly of WGBH, where they did a lot of great things with audio description. Recently, as Larry likes to say, rewired, not retired from Yahoo. He'll be speaking with Saqib Sheikh from Microsoft, the creator of Seeing AI, and the list just goes on. I mean, you've got You've got the really big companies supporting this. You've got Ford. You've got you'll have stuff about autonomous driving vehicles, self-driving vehicles from Waymo, and that's a big one. You're going to have stuff about online gaming and what's being done for the blind, visually impaired. So we could maybe one day create our own avatar and play in those games. There's going to be a lot about artificial intelligence and where it's going and the changes that are evolving. Augmented reality, really advanced topics. There's something for everyone. You've got stuff about Braille devices, you've got blind specific devices, and then you've got mainstream tech. So there really is something for everybody at this year's conference.
Absolutely. Sounds exciting and absolutely very comprehensive as well. So there's so many, such a wide ranging basket of topics that are going to be discussed. So I suppose that leads me on to my next question then about the conference. So while it's online there, is it interactive? Can the audience get involved with questions or anything like that on the days that it's online?
Yeah, it is interactive. So a lot of the speakers have already been, actually all the speakers have been pre-recorded, but there will be breakout sessions. So the breakout sessions will be live. You look on the agenda, there are links to everything. Obviously, sitetechglobal.com is the website. You click on those links. So those breakout sessions, you're all going to want to catch live. The great thing is you can go back and watch any of the main speakers at any time. So those you don't necessarily have to catch live. You want to take a look at the agenda and see which breakout sessions you want to tune in, because those will just be aired once, and that's where you can connect with some of the speakers. And we know that everybody always has questions. Well, how is this going to affect me?
Yes, I can envisage those questions coming in, all right. But I think it's great that the audience can get involved, pop a few questions across, and get some answers. And I suppose when those questions get asked, often it can lead to more ideas coming out of developers there that might be listening in and say, there's actually a great good question. We never thought about that, and something gets developed on the back of questions. So I suppose you'll be encouraging everyone to get involved there and with questions if they can.
Very true. I always want to speak my mind and be heard and that sort of thing. It's unfortunate because of everybody's schedule that everybody isn't reachable, but there are a good amount of people that will be reachable through those breakout sessions. And you can always send emails in and make sure to follow, I believe it's @GlobalSight on Twitter, and you can always tweet the conference and potentially get a question in that way as well.
Oh, that's a great idea, because I know a good few of our service users listening on today. Some of them are Twitter users as well, so that would be a great way to get involved. I suppose you're after answering my next question. Earlier, you were saying there's the full list of speakers, and I suppose the subjects that will be discussed as well. And that's on, we'll just give that website again. So sitetechglobal.com.
That's correct. sitetechglobal.com. That's the main landing page. And from there, it's a very well designed, obviously fully accessible website, whether you're on a PC, Mac, or a mobile device. Everything's been tested. They even did a little screen reader warm up this past weekend for people where they missed that, but they were able to jump on in, test their screen reader to make sure it was working for when the conference kicks off tomorrow.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And that's great foresight. And, just for our service users listening on there today, who I think after listening to you speak, Brian, are going to be quite interested in this. They'll definitely want to jump onto that site and get involved. Which brings me to my next question. We're right on the eve of the conference. Is it still too late to register, or can we get a register for tomorrow?
Yes, anybody can still register. And the great thing is you don't even need to register this year to attend SiteTech Global. The reason we ask you to register is so we can keep you updated. It's a quick process, typical. You go in, you enter your name, a few little details, and that way we could keep you updated about everything going on with SightTech Global. But, you do have people, I don't want to give my info out. Well, the great news is you just go to the conference website and everybody could join and listen in to the conference and take something away from this. And the best part is it's free, it's online, which means everybody could do it and everybody can learn something from this year's conference. So we're real excited about that.
Excellent. That is brilliant, because yes, often signing up for these things and you're waiting for a link in an email to come back, that can be, a bit too much work, as some might say.
Sure. Yeah, just tune in. Like I said, tomorrow, I guess I'm trying to think, I believe it's 11 a.m. my time, so I believe that'd be 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. So about 5 p.m. I think it kicks off at about 5 p.m. your guys' time tomorrow. So
yeah, we're about 5 hours ahead here.
Yeah, everything's coming from California, which 3 hours behind New York City time, and I was told there'd be no math, but I think I did the math correctly.
Excellent. I suppose going forward then, right? I know you're probably all eyes everything on tomorrow and you're focused and everything, but plans for the future years, and is there any, plans coming down the line, let's say, for when we go to 23 and 24 and on through the rest of the decade?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, depends on how this year goes, obviously, but the plan is to be back next year with, again, a virtual conference and build upon this year's success. A lot of times you get the same speakers. There are a lot of new speakers this year. There are so many people from a global scale doing such phenomenal things that, things are moving so fast in I like to call it just the blind tech world. Things are developing so rapidly that there's always going to be a lot of hot button topics going on. And we're real excited to see where, these companies go as augmented reality becomes more realistic. And for the people that I know, we're testing this stuff. They're telling me it's going to be accessible to us blind people. I'm totally blind, so I can't wait to check that out. And I think that, along with the self-driving cars, which, they're testing them out in certain cities here in the United States, I think once we get into next year, 6 months in, that those are going to be some hot topics that we'll be talking about next year. And I think next year, the hope is to grow the live in-person part, make that even bigger. And, everything that we're doing here is supporting the Vista Center. That's a great center that's been around for 75 years in Northern California. And they help the blind and visually impaired reach their goals in life and live their best possible lives. So they got a lot of heavy hitters involved. And I think the plan moving forward is, to get those people coming back to tell us about the latest and greatest things they're working on.
Absolutely. God, that sounds very exciting, Brian. And no doubt the conference will be a huge success. And hopefully after today's podcast, we have a good Irish attendance there tomorrow. I can be quite certain that many of our regulars listening on here today would be no doubt interested to participate in at least some, if not all of the conference. You just mentioned there about the self-driving cars. I just want to pick up on that. I actually was scrolling through Twitter last night and I noticed Tesla had their self-driving cars out in the rain and working very, very well. So it was unusual looking at a steering wheel turning and nobody behind it.
Yeah, it's something we got to get used to. And yeah, there's a lot of different companies working on it, and the day I could get behind the wheel again, I know Top Gear, the British version, is real big over there. If you Google Top Gear Blind Drift Challenge, you'll find me on the American version of Top Gear. So I can't wait to get behind the wheel once again, and that was more drifting and just having fun. But if you've never been behind the wheel, it's something that we miss. And it's not about being blind, visually impaired. It's about gaining our independence back. And hopefully these companies, I don't care who gets there first. I just want them to get there quickly.
Absolutely.
Have you gotten to drive a self-driving car yourself yet, Brian?
I have not gotten behind one of those yet. So my experiences have all been from my younger life. I didn't go blind till later in life. And when we did the Top Gear thing, they had me on some Nissan sports car, and that was pretty wild but they had a stunt driver in the car telling me what to do. So that's different, getting the floor of the car around the racetrack. And I'll tell you what, it's not the easiest thing to keep it on. I kept ending up on the grass at first. But
they do an event here in Ireland in, I believe it's Mondello Park, where they bring a load of people who are maybe visually impaired or blind, and they all get to do race car driving and rally driving for the day. So it does, like, there is a serious adrenaline rush to that, and being able to drive it. Who knows? One of these days it'll happen, I'm sure.
Yeah, the bumper cars at Disney have gotten pretty lame for me, so I need to be behind a real car now.
Yes,
but that sounds like a fun event.
Those bumper cars have gotten old.
Yeah. So it's amazing. That's fantastic to hear. That's got to be a really fun day. And my mom asked, she said, what do you think? I said, well, when I was doing it, it was the scariest thing I ever did. But at the end of the day, and I was still alive, it was the coolest thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
That's brilliant. Brian, thanks very much. A few questions in, David.
Do we have a few questions? I think, JP, were you trying to come in there?
Yeah, just as a question there for Brian. Before you finish, Brian, I might just check this with you. So many guest speakers at SightTech Global, massive event, obviously. And one of the things I'm interested in listening into over the next couple of days is the talks from the accessibility team at Amazon. And I believe there's Peter Korn and Joshua Mile
correct,
joining from the accessibility team at Amazon. And this is such a huge area. What we've found in the last year or two within NCBI is more and more service users who are using voice technology or smart speakers, with your Amazon Echo speakers, and using features like show and tell. I mean, we're regularly running technology courses on smart speakers, Brian. It's such a constantly evolving, developing area here, and so much interest in it. What kind of announcements do you expect, or do you know at this stage, might there be around, I suppose, exploring kind of innovations around voice technology, particularly with Amazon Alexa?
I don't know per se, because Amazon, as you imagine, is very secretive about their announcements, but I could speculate. I'd like to hopefully hear the advancements and improvements that they're making. I am a big fan of Amazon, like you guys. I have to call it the A Lady. We call it the A Lady on my podcast, or I set off 1 million devices in here. I have televisions that have voice view. That's Amazon's screen reader built into it. And unlike some of the other TV makers, Amazon is always improving voice view. It's not a one and done. So hopefully they'll be talking about the future and maybe some improvements coming down the road. I've met Peter before. I've never met Josh, but I know Josh, I believe, is blind visually impaired. So we've got one of our cronies in there working directly on the devices, and I'm sure they'll be talking about potentially some of the devices we might see coming out in the future from Amazon. But their commitment between Josh and Peter, I mean, if you've never heard Peter speak, he's incredible. Peter's, I believe, their head of accessibility for at least 8 years. And it's good to hear that you guys get the devices over there, because I know not all the time do things get overseas and everything. So they're really doing some pretty impressive things at Amazon. And those, to have those talking assistants, I mean, it's just so quick to ask it something. And
it's replaced all the clocks in our house now. It has officially replaced all of them. They're gone. There's no more talking clocks.
It drives me mad when I hear somebody and I'm talking to them on the phone and they have a cuckoo clock talking in the background. I'm like, what year is this? So it's great. They make our lives, and especially people that really aren't necessarily comfortable with computers or a smartphone. It's a way for them to connect. And I know you mentioned that show and tell feature. You've got a senior parent or something you need to check in on. They've got a lot of great features. You just got to embrace them. And I think a large part of our community has really given into technology. I was not a tech guy until I went blind, and then I needed to rely on all this stuff. I start off some of my comedy sets saying, thank God the nerds have won, because, now I rely on all their tech to do all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Hey,
what
Brian,
tech do you use yourself, Brian? Sorry, Joe.
Sure. I'm primarily a Mac guy, although it's funny. I had never used JAWS until the pandemic hit. I've always been a Mac voiceover guy. I've got Macs lying all around here, but I haven't been happy with some of the voiceover changes on the Mac, so I've opened my door, and I've been really impressed with the development of JAWS. And I learned JAWS and NVDA. Microsoft Narrator's even come a long way on the PC, and it's just incredible the choices you have nowadays. And I live in both environments, but my go-to device is the Mac when I podcast. My iPhone is always at my hip. I've got iPads in more rooms than I should have them in. So it's funny because every now and then you'll get everything talking at once, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Shut up.
Okay, yeah, you know the feeling. Hey, Brian, it's Joe here. Can you remind us name your podcast and what kind of topics you discuss?
Sure, it's That Real Blind Tech Show, and we talk about the good and bad of assistive technology. None of us, myself or my co-host, work for any of the tech companies, so we're very opinionated on the show. In fact, I've got to edit the latest show today. I have this weird memory. I worked in the movie business before I went blind, so a lot of times we'll put some little funny movie clips into the show, and there is a lot of humor to the show. In fact, we just had not too long ago our 100th episode since we rebranded as That Real Blind Tech Show, and we did a clip show. So if you haven't heard the show, go check out some of those clip episodes, especially clip show part 5. It turned into a nightmare project. We had to do 5 of them. I guarantee a lot of people have told us they can no longer listen to our show while in public transportation because they start laughing out loud and people are staring at them. My favorite email was that a guy spit up his morning coffee on his wife because he was laughing so hard to our show. I don't advise that, but we have a lot of fun on our show. It's not your typical tech show.
It's a good testimonial. Good testimonial to have on your CV.
It is. It is. You can call us and you can email us in. We basically talk all things talking tech. We talk obviously Microsoft, JAWS, Apple, VoiceOver, VoiceView with Amazon. We talk about a lot of the products we're using, what we like, what we don't like. I'm a huge fan. I think, one of the first blind people to ever get the Bose frames many years ago. So we're always really diving out and spending all of our money on the latest talking tech gadgets.
I agree there. The sound is fantastic from the Bose frames.
Amazing. Version 2. Oh, gosh. I had 3 pairs of version 1, and I had once I got my first pair of version 2, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to get another one of these, And yeah, I've got backups to my backups. I'm fortunate in that way. Sometimes they send me this stuff to test out, probably like you guys, but Bose, for some reason, they know their products are awesome, so they don't need anybody to test them out for them.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Brian.
Yeah, no worries.
Excellent. I suppose that brings us to the end of talking about SciTech Global for today, Brian. And I want to say thank you very, very much for joining us. It was great to hear about the conference coming up. And I suppose it's great to get the message about the conference across the airwaves of Ireland here today. And hopefully, as I said earlier, that there'll be a good few Irish people attending on the back of hearing about it here today. So, yes, all that's left for me to do is wish you and the team behind SciTech Global the absolutely best of luck tomorrow. And no doubt it'll go brilliant. And I look forward to actually listening into some of the pieces myself, if I can get a few moments away from work, that is.
Hey, remember, you can always go back and watch them, and they'll be up there on the SciTech Global channel. You don't have to tune in live, and we appreciate the opportunity to come and share the news with you guys today. And thanks for the little plug, and hope that some of our fellow blind, visually impaired peeps over there in Ireland can tune in over the next few days.
Absolutely. Brian, thank you very, very much. And with that, we'll hand you back to David.
Thanks, Daniel. Yes, that's an absolutely fantastic initiative there. And who knows, hopefully you'll get to the comedy scene over here in Ireland as well, Brian, in one of these days. So fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have a load of other stuff on the show today. We've got some exciting tech news coming up later on in the show. But first, Santiago Velasquez is over in Australia, I believe. So it is the middle of the night over there, I believe. So that's crazy that you're joining us that late. But thank you so much for doing it. And you're here to tell us all about Hailo and EyeSyght. So first of all, welcome to Talking Technology.
No, thank you, David, and everybody else for having me. And no, not a problem. I work all around the world, so working at this time of night here is not rare for myself.
Fair enough. Good to hear. Well, first of all, welcome. And if we can start, I guess, then with Hailo. For those of our listeners who haven't heard of Hailo, and I was one of these people until only a few weeks ago who hadn't heard of your product, what is Hailo and how does it work?
So Hailo is a system that began to improve public transport accessibility. And the basic concept that it addresses, or rather problem it addresses, is for a lot of us, whether you're in Ireland, the USA, Australia, Colombia, Spain, any country, when you're catching a bus, we can't see it approaching. If your vision is pretty good, you might use a magnification device, but 99% of the time you can't see it approaching it. So you can't lift up your hand to hail it. And as a result of that, a lot of people are left behind. So people have come up with many ways to stand out. You know, sometimes people just wave their hand, sometimes people just hold the sign, they wave their cane. You know, they want to stand out, but they don't know when the bus is coming. So because of that, and because of me being left behind at stops when I needed to go to work, meetings, or even just catching up with friends, I was just frustrated, and I thought, there's got to be a better way. So Hailo allows a commuter to get to their stop, be it bus, be it train, ferry, tram, or what have you, select the vehicle they want to board, select the destination where they would like to disembark said vehicle, and the operator of the vehicle, be it a train guard, be it a bus driver, and so on and so forth, will get an alert one stop before they need to pick you up and one stop before they need to drop you off. That way they know somebody needs to get on my service, they are here. You don't need to worry about waving your hands, your cane, wearing a high-vis vest, doing star jumps, and so on and so on. And once you board the vehicle, you don't need to worry about, okay, I don't know this route and I can't look outside because I'm blind and I can't look at the map. So I am going to have to rely on somebody else helping me out. And either you get lost, you get dropped off at the wrong stop, you don't get picked up. And that's where Hailo comes in. Hailo just takes all of that away from, all of that headache away from the commuter as well as the driver, right?
Sure, absolutely. Well, what we'll do, and we'll talk more about Hailo in just a minute, but what we'll do first is we'll take a look at a video that you sent us that demonstrates, I guess, how Hailo works and why it's needed, really. So if you want to roll that there, JP.
Sure thing.
Hi, my name is Santiago Velasquez, and I am vision impaired. If you're blind, you can't hail the bus because you can't see it. And if I can't hail the bus, how is the bus driver supposed to know that he's supposed to stop? If you also want to be independent, you have to utilize public transport. Otherwise, you have to rely on other people. But what happens when you can't hail the bus, so the bus driver doesn't see you, and the bus doesn't stop? Well, this is what happens. If there was one thing only that you could fix out of our current public transport system, what would that be?
I would say buses.
It would definitely be buses.
Buses are not a guaranteed way of transport for me, so I try and avoid unguarantees. I only do what I know and what I'm assured I can use to get there.
Buses are really difficult to catch, very difficult to understand when the bus is arriving.
Well, I have had occasions where I've been out till about 10 o'clock at night ask the people on the house app, yeah, this bus stop 2 houses down. You go there, there's 4 or 5 buses that should come along, and I've been there till, from 10 till say 11:30 at night, and had to give up and go and find somewhere or go back to the house, knocking on the door, waking them up saying, I'm still here, can you call me a cab?
What does public transport mean to you?
Public transport means a significant contribution to me being effective in the stuff that I do in my life.
I do the talks with Sydney buses, and every week at the moment with the bus drivers, and the most reported things to guide dogs and to transport the bus didn't stop for me, and that seems to be the biggest problem, is basically the bus didn't stop and pick me up, or I missed my stop.
People are wondering, why is it so important? And I think it's important because we need to understand that it's not just a physical disability that's a barrier, it's our emotions that can be the barrier as well. So once you've had a bad experience that's going to turn you off buses, that's also a barrier in itself, and this app completely solves that.
I think more people would use buses if there were apps like this that made it easier. I'd be curious to know what everyone's answer is for the people that joined us today that got vision impairment. What were the 2 best things that you liked about the app? And I'm sure it would be, we can hail the bus, and it will vibrate, and getting off. They'll be the best things for them.
It's what stands this up apart from the others. It's communicating to the driver.
Yes.
And the passenger is in control of the route. They know, where am I getting on, where am I getting off? The driver knows that as well.
Since its inception, Hailo has been designed to make public transport accessible to all, starting with people who are vision impaired and expanding out right through to the general public by utilizing lived experience, private and public trials. Hailo's design has demonstrated that public transportation can be and should be accessible to all. With the support of Guide Dogs New South Wales, a trial was performed in the middle of 2021 with more than 15 vision impaired participants in a out-of-service bus in the middle of Sydney CBD. In addition, a private demonstration of Hailo was done in Brisbane in support of the Augmented Reality Challenge. Public transportation can be accessible, and it should be accessible for all.
It's a fascinating concept. It really is. And one of my colleagues, Joe Lonergan, you've had some issues around public transport yourself, and you've heard this from a lot of our service users. So do you want to tell us just a little bit about some of the issues you found, and maybe we can discuss if Hailo will be able to help with that?
First of all, I have to say there has been great strides in this country as regards bus services and public transport. We have announcements now at each stop, which is a great help. We didn't have that a few years ago, and now it just makes us rely a little bit less on our mobile phone or the colleague beside us or passenger beside us on the bus. But Santiago's idea of notifying the busman that there is a blind person at the stop is great, because we have that famous problem over here and in London, of course, where maybe 3 buses come at once, and maybe the middle bus is the bus that you want. So you're standing there at the bus stop, and all the other passengers that are waiting for the bus see the bus coming, so they get on the middle bus. Say it's a 4, an 83 and a 19. You're waiting for the 83. They all jump on the 83. You're not sure which one is your bus. They all funnel onto the bus, and the bus departs without picking me up. You know what I mean? So that's a famous issue, and then it leaves you there for another 20 minutes to wait for the next bus. And second issue then would be, we'll say, if you're in a suburb around Dublin, for example, or even Cork. Say around Dublin, you want to go to Enniskerry, Ashbourne or Wicklow, one of the towns that are probably half an hour to an hour away, but the bus service to those towns would be less frequent than a city bus. So if you miss a bus or you fail to hail the bus down, you have to wait another hour for the next bus, and thus you're standing there in the cold or the rain over in this country, probably rain. So that can be a big issue. So if this actual application or service came through, I could imagine it would be very, very valuable to us over here in this country. I suppose something I'd like to ask is how do we get this to the companies? How do we get this through to the actual bus companies or through the governments, or maybe force companies to use this particular application? How do we get to that step?
That's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked that, because that's where we're at. So as you said, you mentioned other problems that I did mention, but from talking to people in Sydney, in Melbourne, in New York, in London, in pick your country, the same problems occur. So we did the trial in Sydney. We got great feedback, and everybody said, okay, so when can I use it in my service? Which is the same question you just asked. And my answer to that is we just have to, governments know the problem. So before we go any further, this is a problem that transport agencies across the world know about. They don't publish this information externally because obviously they wouldn't look good, right? But the first step is demanding better service. I know that sounds rather simplistic, but demanding better service. At the moment, we are talking to a few governments, in Ireland is one of them. The National Transport Agency was saying, hey, we did this trial in Sydney, the feedback was great. We're talking to NCBI, the feedback has been rather impressive, even if you guys didn't get to participate. Can we do a longer term trial of Hailo in 10, 20, 30, 40 bus routes that NCBI and people help us select for us to fully refine the system? And the reason why I say that is the system works, no issues whatsoever, right? But it's the first of its kind in the world, and unfortunately for us people who are vision impaired, we don't tend to have a lot of technology that is designed by us for us with the intent of being used in other areas. So we just need that red tape to disappear. The government employees and then the representatives to say, yep, let's do this, rather than saying, oh, well, this is something we have discussed in committees, because that's what they say. Oh, we discussed it. We're going to do something about it. And that's the wall that we keep finding. They discussed it, and that's where it ends.
And 3 years later, you realize maybe nothing's happened. Yeah, I know the feeling. So, yeah, we have to get the system going where we can talk to the people that are in charge of these agencies and get an app like this over the line. Another thing, you came up with the name Hailo. I know we had a famous app over here. They've changed the name of it now. It used to be called Hailo to hailing down taxis, and Beyonce has a famous song called Hailo. How did you come up with the name Hailo? Did you do a lot of brainstorming before you picked the name Hailo, or did you have a team that brainstormed and thought up with the name Hailo?
Honestly, it was a lot of discussion with a lot of people, what would work. And you are correct, there were a few taxi apps that we saw with the name in different spelling and same spelling and whatnot, and we thought, we thought hailing, hail me, hail star. There were a lot of things, but we just figured Hailo just flows, and it's a combination of hail and hello. So we just figured we keep the beginning of, or rather most of hail, and we'll just add the O of hello at the end.
Excellent. So are you optimistic then that you'll be able to get this into other countries like Ireland, Spain, Great Britain, that kind of thing? Are you optimistic that this is going to come?
There are a few things that are on our favor at the moment. The first one is agencies know of the problem, and I will have to admit, Ireland, I've been fortunate to be speaking to the National Transport Agency, a few contacts there, and they're quite keen on A, knowing that there is a solution, B, they are aware of the problem, Now, what we need to do is figure out how do we do a trial with the government, understanding that it's not a full rollout. We're not implementing this across the whole network, because for that to be the case, a tender would have to occur. They would have to put a tender out, we would have to apply, and so on and so forth. And the second thing is the interest is quite high because of a trip I'm going to be taking next year, specifically looking at public transport accessibility in a lot of countries. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to make it to Ireland, but you never know. We might make it to Ireland beforehand or after my particular Churchill Fellowship trip.
Very good. I know you have been speaking to Possibility Lab. They're a section that work on projects alongside NCBI. Hopefully, look, we can work on this project, and I look forward to it being here in the future. I'll pass back over to David.
I'll make it simple. If people who are listening, whether you're in Ireland, whether you are across the pond in the USA, in Australia, wherever you're listening to, if this is a problem that you face, and this is a problem that Hailo solves, because I can speak about it, the people that have used it can speak about it, but if you think that Hailo can solve it based on what we have shown today, get in contact with myself and get in contact with the government representatives. That's the way to get this through. If we don't ask, we don't get anywhere.
And Santiago,
Exactly.
what's, just out of curiosity, how does the business model for something like Hailo work then? Is it the transport operator funds it? Is it the user would fund it? How would the business model work?
That's a good question, and it depends. And what I mean by depends is every transport location is different. So our objective is not to charge the customers, definitely not do that. Our objective is to work with public transport agencies and have a fee for them to enable Hailo trips on their network. And the beautiful thing about it is that they already spend so much money on tracking systems like Cubic, which is an American company that develops the tracking systems for a lot of London buses, New York buses, and Hailo in comparison is nothing. So to make their systems accessible, it's a no-brainer, at least from our perspective.
Sure, and you mentioned just earlier on there the Churchill Fellowship. For those of us in Ireland who aren't too familiar about this accolade, what is it and how did it come to pass? How did you end up receiving this award?
Absolutely, and the fellowship began in the 1960s when I believe it was Prince Philip, who was obviously now passed away, asked Winston Churchill how did he want it to be remembered. And he said, I want a scholarship of some sort that anybody can apply for, and that it's all about learning. And fast forward to today, how it works, you apply for a fellowship and you propose a topic. And in my case, it was looking at public transport accessibility and how it's being done around the world. Because unfortunately, nobody's doing it right. There are good ideas all across the world, but there is no one system that you say, wow, this is it. And they obviously look at your application, and if you're successful, they cover your travel expenses to travel across the world, across the countries you have selected. And over a period of 8 weeks, you learn as much as you can and you bring it back to your country, in this case, obviously Australia, but I'm sharing it with the wider world. But fellowships can occur in New Zealand, the USA, Canada, I believe, or the UK definitely. I'm not sure about Ireland, but potentially you guys also have a Churchill Fellowship.
That's awesome. And I guess then, so Hailo did Hailo come out of that in a way, or was Hailo preconceived before the Churchill Fellowship?
No, Hailo was before. Hailo started about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago. As I said, sort of because of me being left behind, talking to other people here in Australia, overseas, and their fellowship just felt like a perfect transition or rather progression, because every single time we talk to governments, they said, oh, but we're following the accessibility guidelines that exist. And, you know, this is in Australia, in the USA, in the UK. And what I needed to get across to them is just because you have braille tiles on well, rather tactile indicators, as the orientation and mobility specialists call them, on a station, it doesn't make it accessible. Or just because you have talking buses, that doesn't mean that you're covering everybody's condition. And if we can't travel to work or to study, then we can't do anything. We can't participate in society. So the progression was, Hailo isn't getting anywhere at the beginning because everybody just thought, oh, our systems are accessible, coming from somebody who has never had to live with any disability. So I thought, let's show you guys, our systems aren't accessible.
That's fascinating, and it is one of these areas that, you know, public transport is one area of accessibility, but you've been tackling two at once, because you also have EyeSyght. So do you want to tell me a little bit about EyeSyght, which we should specify is EYESYGHT, I believe?
That is correct. So EyeSyght is the other piece of this particular puzzle, which is, if you can't access information, you're also limited by how much you can contribute and participate with society. So EyeSyght is a tactile display about the size of an iPad. We're on our second generation, and it's a full-blown Windows computer. And when you look at it, it doesn't have any. It doesn't look any different than just a regular touchscreen. But it comes to life when you put your fingers on the glass. And the idea behind EyeSyght is, we have had braille displays that allow you to read braille. But anything that is visual, maps, charts, photos, that can only be accessed by printing it. And obviously that's slow and clunky. So I thought, well, let's build a display that allows us to feel what we're looking at. Because the sighted world has had them since the 1930s. Why can't we have one of our own? So EyeSyght, as I said, is now on the second generation, and at the moment our display allows you to interact with graphics. So be it a static picture, be it a map, be it a dynamic keypad, be it a graph of mathematics, be it a slider of some sort. And we're currently preparing for a road show where we will show the display to interested parties and raise some funds, because, well, we have come to that point where the funds that we received to develop the display, we need more. And the pandemic wasn't ideal to showcase a tactile display over video. So, you know, we have had a few slowdowns, but we're getting ready. So if you guys are interested, or anybody else who's listening is interested, to check us out, and potentially knows anybody who wants to contribute and make this reality for all, by all means.
And how does something like this feel, Santiago? Like, is it, like, you describe it as a bit like an iPad, but if I touch, you know, the glass, what is it that I'm actually feeling?
So we can change what you feel, and I know that's not a direct answer, but let me explain. The glass itself obviously has no moving parts. It's just a piece of glass. And we can give different tactile attributes to a particular point on that screen. Say you have a keypad. So the numbers, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 0, they might be very smooth. The 5 might be bumpy or scratchy, and the division between the numbers might feel like a line, and that can be rough, smooth, feels like a bit of a dip, feels like a little bit of a bump, if you will. So there isn't one particular texture or feeling that you can touch. It's whatever the developer wants to give to that particular visual element. And the thing is, because this is one of the first technologies in the world, if not the first, it's all new. We're having to discover, what does a 5 or what should a 5 look like? What should a graph look like? What should a map look like? Is a river supposed to be smooth, or would people prefer bumpy waves in a river? Roads, are they supposed to be bumpy, or are they supposed to be smooth? It's all working out what works and what can people understand without having to be, trained.
And when there's no moving parts in the glass display, how are those sensations or feelings being created on the glass, I guess?
The best description I can give without getting all technical and so on and so forth is our fingers have water, and we're able to use electromagnetic fields, so electric field and magnetic fields, and we're able to use them in such a way that we create a magnet that pushes and pulls your fingertips a tiny, tiny fraction, but it does it very quickly. And by modulating how much we push and pull and where we turn those sensations on and off within the glass, we can trigger your brain into thinking, oh, that's a line, that's a dot, or that's a bumpy, sinusoidal graph, that's a square, that's a slider for volume, and so on and so forth.
And is it a touch screen then, or how does that work? Or
yes, it's also a touch screen. So you can feel, and then you can touch, and you can activate it. It's just a regular computer. So it can run JAWS. You can just connect the keyboard if you wanted to type that, using just a regular keyboard. The screen itself, unless you touch it, as in to interact with a figure or with a picture or with something that is graphical, you can just use it as a regular computer and you wouldn't know otherwise.
That's amazing. And I saw a video that you have posted to YouTube about EyeSyght that spoke about, and this is a really fascinating area, that human-robot interaction.
That is a very old video. You are correct. That's when we were first getting started. We were looking at robots and how humans can interact with them and vice versa. And what we were trying to do with when we were first getting started, we were looking at various applications for the technology. And we were wondering, okay, so we can easily do touchscreens. So the idea is to have the technology embedded into smartphones, into tablets, into computers, so that you don't have to buy a specialized device. But can we use virtual reality and gloves to control robots and potentially feel through the gloves what the robot is feeling? Or can we change the texture of a robot's skin to convey information about their status or their temperature, battery level, and so on and so forth? And that video was all about that. What else can we do with the technology other than, okay, we can use it for touchscreens?
It's amazing the potential that's in this concept then. And have you had much traction with the concept? What feedback do you get from those who have tried it?
At the moment, everybody really enjoys it, because I think the first thing is the wow factor. I'm feeling stuff, but this is just a piece of glass. How on earth is this happening? The second one is, okay, this is great. And the second response we get is when we are trying to solve specific issues. So one example is here in Australia, one of the major banks was sued in 2017 or 2018, I can't quite remember, because all of their terminals are touchscreen. And when people were to go in to pay and it was above a certain cost, they needed to share their PIN number with their store clerk, because otherwise they couldn't see the screen. The screen didn't have an easy to use screen reader. So we said to the bank, hey, you don't need to worry about adding a screen reader, because let's face it, the people who are using the FPOS terminal aren't going to know how to turn it on and off. And if you need to train somebody on how to use your FPOS terminals, you already lost the game. So how about if you check this technology we built? Here's a keypad. If you're a visual person, you touch it, your pin's gone, life's good. If you are a blind person, you touch it, you can feel the numbers, and when you press a little bit harder, you can activate them, and Bob's your uncle. So those are sort of the types of technologies that we have been showing, the types of solutions we've been showing, and Google Maps is one of them, but the pandemic definitely locked us down. I haven't been able to leave Australia for the past 3 years because they said no. So all of those technologies that we were showing, all of the manufacturers are overseas. So we have had to slow down, unfortunately, but I'm hoping to get back into it. And with the new display, we're hoping to showcase it to way more people and get it into the hands of as many people as possible.
So that's really, really cool.
David, so Santiago, you visualize that this will be a solution as well to the problem we have at pay terminals of touchscreen pay terminals. This EyeSyght, a side of this could be a solution to them kind of pay terminals. Then is that what you envisage?
I don't have enough ideas as to how this can be used, and what I mean by that is just one of the solutions. Both Hailo and EyeSyght started as solutions for problems that vision impaired individuals face, catching a bus, accessing graphs at uni, at school easily. But the idea behind both of them is, okay, we'll fix the problem for vision impaired individuals, but then if anybody else wants to use them, be it for an FPOS terminal, be it for a touchscreen device that allows you to buy tickets for a concert, for a train, if anybody wants to use it on smartphones for gaming, for giving keyboards tactile attributes, on laptops, on robots, go for your life. We only develop the technology, right? Any developer can say, I'm going to code an app. I want these tactile attributes for my buttons, for my sliders, for my pictures. At the end of the day, if we can give the technology, I'm sure that people will come up with solutions that we can only dream of.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
It's an amazing concept, it must be said, and who knows, maybe we will. I mean, at the moment we can use screen readers, but the screen is always remaining flat, so maybe, like, who knows what the future brings. If we can evolve that and create almost that tactile experience that I guess hasn't really existed since the button phone, but on a much more advanced level, who knows what the potential might be.
Exactly. You won't be limited by saying, oh, you can't study math because we can't produce those graphs for you. Or you shouldn't travel alone because you can't see that map. Or, I want to play a video game on my phone, but I can't feel the buttons. It's adding an extra layer of information, not taking, the screen reader away. It's just an extra layer that we can benefit from.
And I assume then, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming the display can, I guess, act as a braille display then, can it?
Yes and no. So what I mean by yes and no is, can we produce dots that are braille? Yes. But because the technology has no moving parts and we're just at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning, the sensation isn't great at the moment. That's where the investment is needed to get it to where visual displays are at. So we're just getting started. We're just, for a lack of a better example, we're in the 1930s where we're just getting black and white. The people are excited for getting TV into their houses, but they're big and they don't have 4K. We need to catch up on 100 years of visual display development in, well, hopefully in the next 5-10 years, but that all obviously requires investment.
For sure. Well, Santiago, it has been a pleasure learning about the different technologies that you've been creating, and who knows what the future might hold for them. And you will certainly have to come and visit us here in Ireland and show off some of this technology at some stage in the future.
No, thank you very much. And absolutely, you never know. I haven't finalized haven't fully finalized my trip for next year, and I am definitely going to be in London. So a jump from London to Dublin is a very, very short flight as compared to from Australia to Dublin. So we can definitely
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. JP, you have a...
Yeah, Dave, just a little bit of sweet feedback from one of our listeners, some positive comments coming in. One to share quickly before Santiago finishes up here is just that one from Dominique saying that it's a very good initiative. This is the Hailo system that you're referring to earlier, and it's be very useful for me being blind, and that I really hope it comes to Ireland soon. So so do we, Santiago, and thanks for sharing your product with us on the show today. So just want to share that bit of a positive feedback from one of our listeners.
No, thank you very much all for having me. Appreciate your time, and yes, I look forward to seeing you guys, meeting you, and for all of the people watching and listening, push. The guys will share my contact details after the show in whatever manner that's possible. Push your governments, ask, and I'm more than happy to talk to whatever government and work with whichever person we need to work with to make public transport accessible, because obviously we can't drive. So if we can't drive and we can't use public transport, how do we get around?
For sure. Well, listen, thank you so much. And JP, do you want to shout out contact details there that if people do want to get in touch?
Absolutely. So I know, Santiago, you have sent on 2 email addresses that people can contact you on for both the Hailo system and for the EyeSyght
that is correct.
Product as well. Do you want to share those with us there, Santiago? What I'll do is I'll put both email addresses in the description of the podcast. If you have those handy there, then I can put them into the description of the podcast today.
Easy. So the addresses are info@hailo.co, and Hailo is HAILO.co, and the one for EyeSyght, which is the tactile display, is info@eyesight.com, and that's EYESYGHT.com. And I would share it, but I'm currently on the phone and I can't send text messages.
That's okay. So yeah, we'll chat in the description. Thank you, Santiago.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Santiago, for joining us. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that.
Thank you very much to you all, and looking forward to meeting you and seeing how all of these things progress.
Absolutely, likewise. So we've got a little bit more on the show today, just a small bit more. Daniel has got some tech news for us. What's happening in the world of technology in the last 2 weeks, Daniel? What exciting stuff have they got for us?
So just yesterday, Google have released for Android its reader mode. It's an app. Well, it's not necessarily an app. It's a service that you add to your phone, but you do download it like an app from the Play Store. So just look for reader mode. It's made by Google, and you can install that. And under the accessibility settings of your Android phone, there is installed apps in there, and reader mode will come up as an option that you can switch on. So what happens when you switch on reader mode? Well, some of us might be familiar already with if we use Chrome as our browser. Often we'd visit a news article or something on our phone and in our Chrome browser, and for a couple of seconds up pops this little question: would you like to view this in reader mode? So basically Google have push this out further now, so it's no longer just a part of the Chrome web browser. It's available all across the phone. So you can then pop the accessibility shortcut in the bottom right of the phone. If you don't already use select to speak on that, it will become your reader mode shortcut. But if you do, it'll pop up, well, which would you like to use, select to speak or reader mode. And if you select reader mode, an overlay will come on the screen and it parses all the text off the web page or the news app that you might use. So this is very good for people who may have apps that were not very readable. The text was maybe far too small and it was difficult to change the background. So basically what this does is it scrapes all the text off the app or the web page you're on. Now, it doesn't work on every single web page. It's generally designed around news articles and things like that. And it will display the text in you can customize that. Then you can change the background, the font style, the size. You can pinch zoom on it to make it bigger. It'll also do word wrap, so there's no going left and right across the screen. It's just a simple up and down. And also there's an audio playback feature. So really the controls are very, very simple, nice and big on screen. And I'm just going to press play here on the journal.ie is an app, and there's an article that I've used, and I'm going to play it here. Hopefully the audio comes through.
Status yellow, low temperature warning to take effect on Thursday night. Showers of hail, sleet and snow are forecast for the second half of the week.
Okay, so enough of that. So that's just, I hope the voice came out clearly there, guys.
Yep, sure did. It's going to be very cold.
Yes, it is. So plenty of time, nights now ahead this week and next week to sit in front of the fire and maybe listen to some of the news articles that are out there. But I have to say the voice quality on the playback is quite good. You know, you would listen to a 3-4 minute article there using their audio system. So it's definitely a big thumbs up to Google for that one. And for people with dyslexia as well, you can also the text will also highlight as it's being read aloud, and you can also ask it to underline the words as they're being read aloud. So it can be a reading aid as well. So very good development there. Definitely worth trying out. It's free.
Well, look, that if it's free, happy days. It's a really cool feature for sure. That's interesting because it seems like it's slightly even more advanced than what we've got on the iOS side. I mean, we have the reader view within Safari on iOS, but even that highlighting of text, I mean, that's for people, as you say, with dyslexia or even who have low vision and might have trouble finding where they are in an article. That's a big deal. So fair play to Google. Well done.
Yep, definitely.
So that, I guess, brings us to an end for this week's show. We will be back in 2 weeks' time for our Christmas special. JP, what have we got coming up on our Christmas special?
So loads, it's a Christmas themed technology podcast on the 20th of December, and who would believe it's the last one of 2022 before the break. So it's Christmas themed, as I say. We're going to be talking about smart speakers. We're going to be talking about accessible Christmas cards, everything like that. But it's a big focus on Christmas, and we will be having some special guests as well on the show with us. And before the next show on the 10th of January, which is all about Braille. Anything else you want to add to there, Daniel, on the next show, or David?
We're hoping there's a big man now. I know he's very busy at this time of year, so for all our younger listeners out there, we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we might have somebody special on the line in the next show.
Oh dear, I can't wait for that. That'll be exciting, won't it?
Yeah.
I wonder who that could be. Well, that brings us to a close for today's show. Thank you so much to Brian and Santiago for joining us, and everyone here at NCBI for helping produce the show as always. And thank you to you for listening. We're back in 2 weeks' time, same place, on the 20th of December, just 5 days before Christmas. Can you believe it? It's only around the corner. So thank you so much for listening. If you do want to get in touch with us here at the NCBI, you can call the info line And that number, of course, is 1-800-911-250. Or you can send an email to labs@ncbi.ie if you do need some tech support. We have clips of the podcast available on the NCBI YouTube channel, and you can, of course, share the podcast around with your friends. We really do appreciate that. So thank you so much for supporting us over the last little while. So that is it. Thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks from all of us here at the NCBI. Thank you for listening to Talking Technology, and we'll see you again soon. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Talking Technology podcast with NCBI Labs. If you would like to support our show, you can visit donate.ncbi.ie. The NCBI Labs Talking Technology podcast is proudly sponsored by IA Labs, the market leader in the provision of digital accessibility services.